Our guest today is Matt Powell, one of the most recognized and quoted analysts in the global footwear and sporting goods industry. With more than 25 years studying athletic retail, Matt has advised brands, retailers, and investors while becoming one of the media's go-to experts on Nike and the sneaker business. He's been on CNBC, Bloomberg Television, Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, and you've read his work in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and many others. He's been featured in Rethink as retail's top retail expert of 2025. He's among the top 1% in LinkedIn profile views and one of the 30 must-follow sneaker writers and bloggers. If you want to understand how Nike became a global powerhouse and where it's headed next, there are fewer people better to ask than my first guest, Matt Powell.
Thanks, Jay, and thanks for the glowing introduction. So way over the top, but appreciate it very much and glad to be here.
Well, the reason I wanted to speak specifically with you is that I had this idea. Well, I'm going to tell you the origination of it. So Nike, obviously, you know this, put an ad around the Boston Marathon, right, which said, runners, Runners welcome, walkers tolerated. And Noble, which is, kind of a New England company and has a very shrewd owner in Mike Rapoli, capitalized on it and attacked them on Twitter as being, dismissive of so many people who can't run, right? I'd probably be in that category as well. I said to myself, Nike is an iconic global business that has this incredibly high market cap. We'll get into it not being as high as it once was. And obviously, others are nipping at their heels. But one of the companies that's nipping at their heels is not Noble. Noble's a spec. And so I said to my team, I said, hey, America 250, it's kind of been met with meh, hasn't been crazy. People haven't taken, but there's great American companies that people love. And Nike is one of them. So I'd love your perspective on why Nike is one of the is one of the great American business stories of our time.
So, I think Nike's real strength is their understanding of the culture, their understanding of the consumer. And it does get them into trouble like this one. I mean, Nike's sort of known for trash talking brands and other brands and other athletes that aren't Nike athletes. But at the end of the day, I think they really resonate with the core consumer. You think about when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and Nike supported him. There were a lot of people who didn't react well to that, but they weren't Nike customers, and they weren't teens that were going to step up and buy more Nike. So, and interestingly, even the firm I was working in at the time was measuring sales, and Nike sales actually got better after supporting Kaepernick. So I think that's really an indication of them understanding who their core consumer is.
What do you think Nike's contribution has been past footwear to the American culture?
Yeah, well, look, sneakers are the shoe of choice in the United States today. That tipped over maybe 10, 12 years ago, where the sales of athletic shoes were greater than all the other shoes combined. It's a part of our lifestyle. Sport is our primary entertainment today, and Nike is the brand that represents sport better than anybody else. And so again, I think these are all winning strategies for them.
Going back in time, when you think about Nike's history, and you've covered them for a very long time, are there a handful of moments that changed their trajectory as a company?
Absolutely. In the mid 80s, Reebok came out with aerobic shoes. It was about the same time that we had the transit strike in New York, and people were having to walk long distances to work. And so women were wearing sneakers on the street with dress clothes, and the whole aerobics boom started. And for a brief period of time, 18 months, 24 months, Reebok took #1 market share in the United States. massive wake-up call for Nike that they needed to address the women's needs more than they were. And I think that really changed their trajectory. About the same time, they signed Michael Jordan, and was just an amazing confluence of events. We had NBA was coming out of the sort of drug and thug side of the league and become much more personality side. Dr. J, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. So the personality of the athlete became much more important. ESPN was growing at that point in time. Before ESPN, you couldn't see out of town sports highlights with any regularity. And all of a sudden, in the morning, you could see what the West Coast team players did in the night before. So all the confluence of events happened at the same time and propelled Jordan into the massive franchise that it has become. Those are probably the two major catalysts for the business, and they both happened in the 80s, which is an interesting phenomenon. So it propelled Nike back into number one market share when they signed Jordan, and again built a $7 billion business.
Was Nike's so when you look back at their rise, do you feel like it was inevitable, or did you feel like that you looking back, right? Not it being in it, were there times that they could have, aside from their early years, bowed out and been taken over?
Absolutely. I think, well, taken over a different story. Phil Knight still controls the most of the voting shares. So unless Phil Knight wants to be taken over, they'll never be taken over. So, but certainly they may have ended up not being the powerhouse that they were. I think they were very lucky in a lot of different junctures. No one knew that Jordan was going to be Jordan. No matter what the movie says or how you look at the marketplace, no one could have predicted that he would have ended up being what he became. And by the way, there'll never be another Jordan in terms of merchandise sales. We can argue all day long who's the better athlete, LeBron or Jordan, and so forth. But in terms of merchandise sales, there is nobody who's ever going to come anywhere close to what he has accomplished.
Why do you think that was?
It's a fascinating story. The early on when the shoes first came out, the brand was, or actually Jordan was fined by the league because he was wearing shoes that had red on them. The shoes were supposed to be either black or white, and that was it. And Nike paid those fines gladly, and they loved that controversy that came from that, and ultimately made the NBA change their dress code. And people started to collect them because Jordan was such a phenomenon. But it really was a very small core of fans. It wasn't thousands and thousands of people. In the early 2000s, some Nike executives came back and said, you know what? We want to re-release the early Nike shoes. And the great story, they went to Foot Locker, and the Foot Locker management said, okay, we'll take 25,000 pairs. And Nike said, no. We're only making 25,000 pairs, and we're giving you 5, and that's it. And the shoe hit retail and evaporated the day they hit retail. And the legend became that you can't buy retro Jordans, and they're only available. And people were figuring out ways. People were paying off store managers to sell them a pair of shoes out the back door, and all kinds of crazy phenomenon. So it really started them off. And then what really took the brand to the next level were the resale platforms, people like StockX and GOAT, where you could trade shoes with other people, and not only trade shoes, but make profit. And that took the brand to yet another level.
This is the Great American Summer, and we are looking at Nike products today. I love the Club Fleece. The Club Fleece is, really the entry point to, this is a crew neck to Nike. And their sweatshirt and fleece material, you got beautiful embroidered logo on it. It's just so clean and really, really, really of great quality. As far as bags go, this is the Nike Speed Utility backpack, right? You see the Nike logo, tons of room in it. What I like about the utility line is it comes also in a duffel. So we're showing different colors here. The black, it's got the beige, but just a beautiful, well done Nike appointed and styled duffel bag. Product of the week coming up, Nike products on sale this summer, the Great American Summer, featuring iconic American brands. Thanks.
You know, it's almost like, I mean, when I hear you tell the story, it's almost like StockX took the playbook of early Nike and repeated it across the entire framework of the industry.
Yeah. Well, the real day people used to trade shoes on eBay, right? Before StockX came along. In fact, Josh Luber, who started StockX, before that he had a company called Campless, meaning you don't have to camp out to find out what a shoe is. And people were trading shoes on eBay, but he created an algorithm that let their establish a common price, if you will. But even the trading on eBay was fraught with risk, that they would tell you the shoe is brand new and in a box, and it wasn't. And StockX and GOAT and the others took that danger out of the equation.
Talking with Matt Powell of Spurwink River. We're talking about Nike. This is the Great American Summer Series. And, you know, I laugh because we're talking about an iconic American company that was started with basically by reselling Japanese sneakers, and you know that was the vision of Phil Knight. What made Phil Knight? I mean, I've read the book Shoe Dog. It's one of the best. I don't know how accurate it is, but I know that it's one of the best biographies or tell-alls, at least, of a company. It really complemented some of the authenticity of the movie.
Right.
What made Phil Knight just so different from everybody else?
Well, I think he had, first of all, he was an extremely competitive guy. And Bill Bowerman, who was the coach at Oregon when Phil was there, also extremely competitive guy. They saw an opportunity, although their vision at the beginning was pretty narrow, that they were going to sell shoes to competitive runners. Well, that's a very small subset of the world's market. And again, talking about luck, all of a sudden, this thing came along called jogging. And you know, you go to a cocktail party and say to people, "Oh, do you jog?" And what's jogging? And it basically was casual running, if you will. And people began to run for fitness and to wear running shoes on as sportswear to show that I am a runner and you're not. And so but I would tell you that probably the biggest thing that made Phil separate from others was his competitive spirit.
He was also a storyteller, and he was really
Yes.
the first storyteller in, or at least one of the first storytellers in marketing, definitely one of the first storytellers in athletic footwear. Where did that come from?
Well, he had an early association with an ad firm called Whedon and Kennedy in Portland, and who were really radical guys of the way they approached the idea of marketing. You know, I've always described Nike as a marketing company that made shoes, and there, you know, how they told the story, where they told the story, with whom they told the story, really, I think set the brand apart. And there still are memorable commercials out there that Nike ran 30, 40 years ago that resonate with consumers. And I think their understanding, again, of trying to bring that competitive spirit to the armchair athlete really endeared them to the American consumer.
Yeah, I mean the iconic swoosh, "Just Do It."
Yes.
I mean, "Just Do It." I find so one of the challenges whenever I get into a marketing conversation is I feel like the best marketing phrase that's ever been invented is already in use.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
original story there is that Phil Knight wanted to say "do it,"
Right.
and he felt like it was too bossy,
Right.
so they added the word "just." And I can't think, I mean, maybe you can, but I can't think of another three words that are more iconic in American marketing or advertising than those.
Certainly not that have lasted this long, that's for sure. And it is truly an amazing an amazing idea, and I think everything they've done builds on that. We started out by talking about the Boston Marathon ad, and there's a certain amount of just do it in that ad, if you will. So and there's another philosophy inside Nike, which is if you have a body, you're an athlete. And which is really non-judgmental, right? Okay, so you're overweight or you have some physical disability, you're still an athlete, and not looking down their nose at people who are perhaps not the most fit individuals in the world.
Well, I'm excited about the Great American Summer, and I'm excited to bring you our product of the week. This is the Nike Vapor Polo. When we looked at all the Nike products, I said, I don't want to do the cheapest Nike polo. It's nice, but it's not like this polo. We've been moving a lot of Lululemon product recently, and one of the reasons why is because of its beautiful elasticity. Well, this Nike Vapor Polo is the same. It's got this wonderful stretch to it. It comes in 9 different colors. Look, when we talk about iconic American brands and putting your logo on the piece, you're talking about the most iconic. Here it is. The Nike swoosh. Everybody knows it. Nike Vapor Polo. It's my favorite in the Nike series, and just a beautiful product to have your logo on it with your company. So come and get it. It's a great offer and great deal right now at Ink stores to highlight some awesome American companies this summer in the 250th year of our country.
Business owner running a business, grinding every day to make sales. What I'm about to say is going to sound like insane. So I'm not an insane person, but this is the market they exist in. Nike was a $280 billion market cap company. They have $46 billion, $50 billion in annual sales roughly. Their market cap is down in the $60 billion range. But yet, they've remained culturally relevant across multiple generations. Do they need a comeback story? Is this right sizing? I mean, there's definitely a lot of little brands that have been, picking at their heels. Noble, a couple $100 million, On Running, a couple, billion, Hoka, billion, so they've lost billions to these other companies. But does Nike need a comeback? I mean, is Nike is it a bad spot? It just seems like it's, a long time ago, I was really good friends with Jack Greenberg, who was the chairman and CEO of McDonald's. And, to say McDonald's was once down, people wouldn't believe you because of how up they are right now.
Right.
Are we in a down period of Nike? Is there nothing to worry about? Like, give me if you sort of will, like the history repeats itself, historic. Are we going back up? Are they going back down? Like, what's happening?
Well, the real issue is a management issue. Before Elliott Hill came back, and Elliott and I are good personal friends, and I have a tremendous amount of respect and faith in him. Before he came back, the company was run by John Donahoe, and Donahoe really took the company in a completely wrong direction. He really believed that they could become a digital monster and didn't need to have wholesale partners. So they cut out a significant amount of their wholesale partners and disrespected and pulled back product from some of their best customers. He had several different layoffs during his tenure. They lost thousands and thousands of years of institutional knowledge that is impossible to replace. And there are smart people in jobs at Nike today, but they don't have decades of experience behind them. And so it's harder for them to move quickly. He's put too much energy into trying to grow their e-commerce business, spent all their R&D money on e-commerce and didn't spend enough R&D money on product. And when the sales didn't come because of all these strategies, the brand became even more promotional, on sale more often. You didn't have to wait for the end of the season. You could buy Nike on sale any day that you went to the website. So it began to lose some of its specialness. And then finally, in order to drive sales, they stuff the market on Jordan and Air Force One and other iconic products, which are built, as I mentioned in the earlier segment, about they're built on scarcity, not built on being able to buy them every day. So this whole confluence of events caused the brand to crash. And
Crash.
it crashed, absolutely crashed, and it's on its way back. There is no danger that Nike will not be number one. They are the number one sportswear company in the world and will be forever, as far as I can see. Are they as big market share wise as they were? No. Will they ever get back to the size of market share they had? Perhaps not. But they're going to remain number one, and they will get back to profitability, and they will get back to steady growth. But these products, these problems that were created in the prior management were so extreme and so impactful that it's really made it very hard for the brand to make a comeback. But it's on its way.
Were the wholesale and are the wholesale relationships so important because people want to see, feel, and touch shoes?
Correct. People want to buy shoes in lots of different locations, and they don't want to just buy it from Nike.com. And so, yes, they've had to repair their retail relationships. They've had to pull back on how much Jordan and Air Force One product they put in the market. They've had to become less promotional on their website, which means they did in the short term fewer sales. It's really been a massive undertaking to turn this brand around, but it is turning, and I have faith in the long term prospects for the brand.
What kind of lessons do you think American businesses can learn from a Nike?
Well, it's interesting. I think I'm a product guy, so I'm going to say it always comes down to great product. Best product in the world can sell itself. The greatest marketing campaign, if the product isn't there, is wasted money. So you have to have good marketing, but first you have to have great product. And Nike's lost a step there in this prior regime. But again, I think we're starting to see a comeback there. I think you have to respect your consumer. I think you have to know who your consumer is very clearly and respect them and understand what their needs are, what their desires are. Those are probably the most important lessons I think that have come out of this.
Where do you see Nike? If crystal ball, you and I may not be here, but 50 years from now, where do you think Nike is?
I still think they're number one. I think they will continue to captivate the consumer, and come out with great product. And again, they're in a bit of a rough patch right now, but they're on their way back.
Will athlete signings always remain a core staple of Nike, or has that dwindled since there isn't another marquee player out there that will move the needle?
Well, that's an interesting one too. I think they haven't invested enough in young players, and most of their assets are elderly, if you will, at this point. In NBA terms, anyway. The marketable window for an athlete in the NBA is 3 to 5 years, and doesn't always start with year one. They've made some decisions that Markelle Fultz, Zion Williamson, that haven't really panned out. And they need some exciting young players to turn them around. The problem is you can't sit here and look at the NBA draft and say that's the guy. You really have to. What I think a smart strategy for brands is to sign a lot of players to small contracts, $1 or $2 million a year. Now, that doesn't sound like a small contract to you and me, but in the NBA, that's chump change, right? So, but you sign guys early at small contract, figure out who's the marketable one, who's the player who's going to be successful in the league, and when they get to that level, then you sign them to the big contract and ride it. I would not be signing a rookie to a major league contract right now. I think that's the wrong approach.
Matt Powell, Spurwink River. I appreciate the insight into Nike and the time that you spent with us today. It's a fascinating story. The movies, the books, I'm sure you feel, because you've spent a lifetime covering them. I'm sure you feel, as I do, that when I had this idea for great American companies. We're talking to folks from Zippo, Samsonite, AT Cross, Carhartt, New Era, like, companies that have been around hundreds of years. So even though the consumer in my head isn't like America 250, the logo, it's politicized and whatever all that is. In my mind, like as an American, I'm like, I love American companies and I love the founding stories that came from like when I read Shoe Dog and when I watch the Nike movie. So like, to me, when we said, let's talk about these American companies this summer, it was always Nike that was going to lead off. Because they in many ways, they've done what those other brands that I've just mentioned that took 150 years in some cases, they've done it in what, 45, 50?
Yep, exactly. It's a fascinating story.
Matt Powell, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Jay.